Hi, this is RGK. Today I'll talk about a turn-based strategy game, Wargroove. If you already knew the Advance War series, it's basically the same, except that it takes place in a medieval fantasy universe rather than a modern military world. If you didn't know about it, it's fine, I will soon explain how it plays. First and foremost, I would like to point out that this game is huge. It took me more than a dozen hours just to unlock all that's on offer. The campaign alone takes roughly 18 hours, and to that you can add an arcade mode in which you have to win several maps in a row, a puzzle mode with situations to resolve in a single turn, a skirmish mode to fight the AI, or up to 4 local players on the same computer, hotsit, and an online mode, and finally you can create and share your own levels and campaigns. If you get this game, it's well worth the asking price. Now let's talk game mechanics. It's simple turn-based warfare. One player accomplishes all they can do during their turn, then the next player can play. You select a unit, then with one stroke you move it and trigger an action, such as attacking or capturing. The map is filled with little villages to capture, which yield gold each turn. Gold is used to buy troops in specific buildings, they need to be captured on the map as well. Imagine some sort of turn-based Warcraft, except that you must capture buildings instead of building them. To win, you must either destroy the enemy fortress or kill the enemy commander. The commander is some sort of hero, a very powerful unit that can charge a power, a so-called groove. These powers can be something like healing or teleportation, and they are unique to each character. Commanders are the only difference between armies, which is the game's biggest disappointment. And they even share the same stats, with those that have a crossbow somehow unable to shoot aerial troops. There are 4 factions: Knights, the Undead, Desert Samurais, and Plant People. But overall, these are just reskins. Each faction is exactly the same, only the visual style is different. It's a shame. Talking about the visuals, superb pixel art and animations. It's exquisitely cute. Small adorable detail, dogs are the only units that do not disappear when they die. They only leave the battlefield. It would be too cruel to murder them, wouldn't it? But horses don't have such luck. The small scenes triggered by a fight are very pretty, but they're absolutely useless. After a while I deactivated them in the options menu and I was shocked. After removing what made most of the charm of the game, the base gameplay suddenly felt very simplistic and limited, and not very exciting. Problem is, we live in an era when Into the Breach exists, and in the world of turn-based tactical games, there are before and an after Into the Breach. This epic game was very smooth with its sequence of one move and then one action, perfectly legible, ultra dynamic with hits that can display the opponents, and most importantly, each move had dramatic consequences. First, Wargroove is not as good in terms of quality of life. This means that you sometimes do small positioning mistakes due to the interface, and you can't even cancel a mistake. And then there are lots of small moves that are simply not very interesting in terms of consequences. Since it plays on large maps, lots of turns can be required to move around your troops. It can be interesting at the start of a mission to optimize your actions in order to survive, but once you're in a dominating position with troops everywhere, it's a nightmare to manage them all one by one. Actually, I would sometimes stop producing new units just because bringing them to the front was too boring. However, mission starts are hindered by something else, the fact that basic units are almost redundant and very slow. Footmen and pikemen drag along, dogs are faster but they're weak, and fights become a war of attrition, decreasing the enemy's life chunk by chunk. An important rule to keep in mind is that the lower health a unit has, the less damage it deals. And basic units are so weak that from the moment you get more gold, you will only want to produce heavy units, and these heavy units will get all the advantages. Lots of health, massive damage, and they can move farther than basic units. It's pointless to buy base units at this point, except to waste time. And that's something that the AI really enjoys doing, and soon you have to manage a ton of small weak units in a war of attrition based on numbers. That's honestly not what I enjoy in tactical games, and I must admit that the campaign eventually started to bore me. Each map can take from half an hour to an hour to finish, and the game doesn't pull any punches. It's not possible to save a game in progress, but that should come in an update. Then there are often scripted events that will have the AI take you by surprise by arbitrarily bringing in new reinforcements to make your life a living hell. I have seen a lot of journalists and players complaining about the difficulty and the weird discrepancy between these cute graphics and the extreme difficulty of the missions. The game lets you cheat a bit and modify some parameters, but I imagine that most players are too proud to do this. On my end, I'm actually proud that I managed to make progress without too many hurdles or restarts, and even finish some tough missions with S rank. It reminded me of the difficulty of strategy games from the 90s, when it was mandatory to know how the mission was going to play out, so that you could anticipate everything. There will soon be an update to let you select difficulty in the usual manner, and the game is currently under what will soon be called hard. Even though I enjoyed the challenge, I eventually ran out of patience, and in my mind, Wargroove's single player battles kept suffering from the comparison with Into the Breach. I then played online and everything changed. Whereas the AI had been drowning me under a small fry, the human players I fought against were picking their troops in a much more interesting manner. For example, if I launched an aerial unit, my opponent would instantly produce an anti-air unit. So now I had to be very careful with my positioning and find a counter. We were not playing with useless basic units, we were waging fabulous aerial battles as we shifted around our rock, paper, scissors, and each move was a determining factor in the tide of the battle. It's against other human players that Wargroove reveals its potential and becomes a subtle strategy game. Against the AI I found it to be tedious and by the numbers, but against another player it truly is captivating. Just a small warning, even though it's nice to have hot seat for local play, those that have not played the single player campaign might be overwhelmed when facing the large number of units to learn. So I will focus on online play. At the moment I never had to wait for more than a few seconds before finding a match. The game was released recently and was quite successful, including on Nintendo Switch, and there is cross-play between all platforms except for the PS4 that is utterly alone. Another nice thing is the possibility to play the game asynchronously, meaning that you can close the game and come back later to play your turn. There are even Steam notifications to let you know. To conclude, Wargroove is not a must-have, but it's still a great game on its own merits. It will please Advance Wars fans, but it might seem very clunky and dated to those who played Into the Breach. Nonetheless, Wargroove is very generous in terms of content, there is a lot to do, and considering the spicy difficulty, you can keep yourself busy for a long time to come. On my end, I was eventually tired with the lengthy fights that became a war of attrition against the AI, demanding a lot of redundant micro-actions, but I renewed the pleasure when I battled against other players and every single decision mattered. Managing positioning and counters had an important strategic reach. Besides the small things that bothered me, I would say that the only big flaw is that the 4 factions are identical. It would have been better to have less content, but content that feels more unique. I hope you enjoyed this video, bye!